There are moments when life shatters you in silence, when the people you trusted walk away, when your plans crumble before your eyes. And in that moment, you whisper, "Why me?" But what if your pain wasn't sent to break you, but to awaken you? What if that heartbreak, that loss, that failure was never a punishment, but a gift, carefully wrapped in tears, meant to lead you back to something greater? Every heartbreak, every loss, and every unanswered prayer carries a hidden purpose. Nothing that happens to you is without meaning. Pain, though it feels cruel, is often the first whisper of transformation. It pushes you out of your comfort, away from what was shallow and closer to what is real. When everything you depended on starts to fall apart, it's not always the end. It's the start of a deeper kind of living. Pain doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to peel away the layers of illusion you've wrapped around your heart. In those moments when you're forced to face what hurts, you also face what's true. Pain holds a mirror to your soul, showing you where you've placed your trust, what you've been chasing, and what you've been running from. It's a quiet teacher that doesn't speak in words, but in lessons that stay. Every ache carries wisdom, if you dare to listen. When life feels heavy, it's not because you're being punished, but because your soul is being stretched to hold more light. Through pain, your priorities shift. You begin to see the fragility of things you once thought were solid. You realize how temporary the world can be and how deeply you need something eternal. The things you once begged to keep start to fade. And though it hurts, you begin to understand that letting go isn't loss, it's liberation. Pain teaches you to unclench your hands, to release control, and to trust the one who writes your story perfectly. And in that trust, something beautiful begins to happen. You start rebuilding, not with ego, but with faith. You find strength in places you didn't know existed. You start breathing again, but differently, with meaning, with gratitude. The cracks in your heart, once raw and painful, start letting in light. What once broke you becomes the very thing that connects you to your Creator, the source of all healing. So when you look back, you realize that pain was never your enemy. It was your turning point, the place where endings disguise themselves as beginnings. The moment your heart was shattered just enough for grace to pour in. And perhaps that is the secret hidden within every sorrow, that through pain, you don't just lose something, you find yourself. When life becomes heavy and the heart begins to ache, something sacred is unfolding within. Pain has a way of opening spaces we never knew existed, tearing away the layers of pride, ego, and illusion that had quietly built around us. It is in these raw moments, when tears blur our sight, that the soul begins to see more clearly. Pain strips us of what is unnecessary and brings us face to face with what truly matters. It humbles us, softens us, and makes us fall to our knees, not in defeat, but in surrender. Through this breaking, the heart becomes a vessel ready to receive light. Before pain, we often believe we can manage life alone, that our strength is enough. But pain teaches us dependence, the kind that brings peace rather than weakness. It whispers that not everything is within our control, and that sometimes losing control is mercy in disguise. In our darkest hours, when nothing else makes sense, we learn to place our trust where it should have been all along, in the hands of the one who never leaves. Pain also teaches sincerity. When you cry out from the depths of your heart, there is no pretense left, no polished words, no performance, just truth. It is in those prayers born from brokenness that sincerity blooms. The fire of pain burns away everything false, everything hollow, until all that remains is the pure essence of faith. Like gold in a furnace, you are being refined, shaped, and polished into something far more beautiful than before. In the quiet aftermath of suffering, patience begins to take root. You start to realize that healing is not a moment. It's a journey. Every small step forward, every breath after heartbreak, every prayer whispered in the dark is part of that purification. You begin to see that even the waiting, even the uncertainty, holds purpose. Patience turns pain into strength and sorrow into wisdom. And when the heart finally begins to heal, you see that pain was never your punishment. It was your purifier. It washed away what was false and left behind what was real. It softened your heart enough to feel again, to love again, and to return to your Creator with sincerity and depth. What once felt like fire was, in truth, light. What once seemed like loss was preparation for something greater. Pain did not destroy you. It purified you. So often, we run after things that sparkle in this world. Love that fades, success that exhausts, approval that never lasts. We chase them because we believe they'll make us whole. That once we have them, the ache inside will quiet down. But when those very things slip from our hands, when life closes doors we were certain were meant for us, the heart feels betrayed. It whispers, "Why me?" And the silence that follows feels endless. Yet in that silence lies the first whisper of mercy. For sometimes what we lose is exactly what saves us. Pain has a mysterious way of redirecting the soul. It takes what we thought we needed and replaces it with what we were always meant to find. When Allah removes something, He does not do it out of cruelty, but out of care. Every disappointment carries within it divine protection. Protection from paths that would have led us away from peace, away from purpose, away from Him. What feels like rejection is often the redirection of a loving hand, steering us toward what our hearts were truly created for. At first, we resist. We cling to the plans we had written for ourselves, refusing to let go. We think the world has ended when, in reality, a new world is beginning. Pain breaks the illusions we built and clears the path for truth to enter. It shows us that our purpose was never to chase fleeting things, but to anchor ourselves to what is eternal. Every detour, every delay, every heartbreak becomes a map leading us closer to our Creator, the only one who never changes, never leaves, and never disappoints. Over time, the heart begins to see what the eyes could not. You start to understand that what you lost was never meant to stay. You begin to see the beauty in the closed doors, realizing that they protected you more than they ever deprived you. You learn that Allah's no is not rejection. It is His way of saying, "I have something better for you." And in that realization, the pain softens. It turns from bitterness into gratitude, from confusion into clarity. When you look back, you see how perfectly every loss fit into your story. How every heartbreak carried a hidden blessing. How every ending brought you one step closer to peace. Pain, you realize, was never your enemy. It was your compass. It pointed you back to the one who writes your destiny with love, even when it doesn't look like love at first. Through pain, you didn't just lose something temporary. You found your eternal direction. When you've walked through storms, you begin to see the world differently. The things that once seemed small now hold meaning, and the people who once seemed strong now look fragile in your eyes. Pain humbles you. It quiets the part of you that once judged others for their struggles. When you've tasted heartbreak, you recognize it in others, even when they hide it behind a smile. It's as if your heart learns a new language, the language of compassion, and you start to see with softer eyes. Through your own pain, you begin to realize that everyone carries an invisible burden. Some people hide it well, some laugh through it, and some silently break under its weight. You no longer rush to assumptions or harsh words because you've learned how it feels to be misunderstood. Pain teaches you that gentleness is strength, that kindness is not weakness, and that sometimes the smallest gesture of mercy can heal more than 1,000 words ever could. This compassion changes the way you love. You stop expecting perfection from people and start appreciating their effort. You forgive faster because you understand how hard it is to be human. You give more grace because you remember how much you needed it yourself. Your heart, once shattered, becomes a refuge for others, a place where broken souls feel seen, where pain is not judged but embraced. In comforting others, you find that you too begin to heal. Pain also deepens your connection with your Creator. When you see the hidden struggles of people, you realize how vast Allah's mercy must be to cover every heart, every tear, every unseen wound. It makes you more aware of how much the world needs kindness and how precious it is to be a source of ease for someone else. Every act of compassion becomes an act of worship, a quiet prayer that says, "Why Allah, as you were gentle with me, let me be gentle with them." And in the end, you come to understand that pain was never just about you. It was a bridge, a way for your heart to reach others, to understand their stories, and to love them sincerely. It turned your suffering into something sacred, something that touches lives beyond your own. What once broke you has now built you into someone softer, wiser, and closer to mercy. And that perhaps is the most beautiful gift hidden within pain. The ability to love more deeply than before. There are moments when pain becomes so heavy that words fail, and the only thing left is a trembling heart and tear-filled eyes. It is in those quiet, broken hours when you turn to Allah, not with practice prayers, but with the raw language of the soul. You don't speak to impress, you speak to survive. And in that surrender, something shifts. You begin to feel a nearness that no comfort ever gave you. The darkness no longer feels empty, because deep within it, you sense the presence of the one who has always been there. Through pain, you learn that Allah's closeness is not limited to moments of joy or ease. It is often in the depth of despair that you realize how near He truly is. The tears you cry are not wasted. They are seen, counted, and remembered. Every sigh, every whispered, "Wa Allah," reaches Him. In pain, the veil of distraction lifts, and your heart finally listens. You begin to understand that He was never distant. You were simply too surrounded by noise to notice His nearness. There are nights when you cry yourself to sleep, thinking no one could possibly understand the depth of what you feel. But those are the nights that shape your faith the most. You begin to find comfort in knowing that Allah hears the things you cannot even express. You realize that your weakness is not your downfall. It is your doorway to Him. The very pain you wanted to escape becomes the reason you start praying again, the reason your heart softens, and the reason your soul returns to the one who never left. With every tear, your heart begins to purify. The more you call on Him, the lighter your burden becomes, not because your problems vanish, but because you now carry them with purpose. You learn that true strength is not found in holding yourself together, but in allowing yourself to be held by Allah. Pain becomes a reminder that He is the only constant in a world that keeps changing, the only refuge when everything else collapses. And when healing finally comes, you realize something beautiful. The nights you thought were your lowest were actually your most sacred. The prayers you whispered in despair were the most sincere words you ever spoke. Through pain, Allah didn't distance Himself from you. He drew you closer, closer than your own breath. And you understand that every ache, every tear was a gentle call from Him saying, "Come back to me." Every wound you've carried, every night you thought you wouldn't survive, was never in vain. Each tear that fell was a seed planted deep within your heart, preparing it for growth. The moments that broke you were not meant to destroy you, but to build within you the strength to hold something greater. Sometimes, pain is not punishment, it is preparation. What you are enduring today may be the very lesson you'll need to walk gracefully into the blessings of tomorrow. You are being molded quietly in ways you cannot yet see. Pain has a way of softening what was once hard. It humbles you, teaches you patience, and deepens your understanding of what truly matters. Before pain, we take things for granted. After pain, every small joy feels sacred. The smile of a loved one, the peace of a morning, the simple act of breathing. Everything starts to feel like a gift. Pain doesn't just prepare you for what's coming. It prepares you to receive it with gratitude. Because when your heart has known loss, it learns how to cherish every moment of gain. There are times when you ask, why now? Why me? And it feels like there's no answer. But if you look back later, you often see that what once hurt the most actually cleared the way for something better. Pain teaches you to trust the unseen, to believe that Allah's plan is greater than your pain. You begin to understand that delays are not denials, and that sometimes what you prayed for had to wait until your heart was strong enough to hold it. What feels unbearable today may be the very thing shaping you into the person capable of carrying tomorrow's peace. Every hardship leaves behind a quiet strength. You might not notice it at first, but over time, you'll find yourself calmer, wiser, and more grounded. The things that once scared you don't shake you the same way anymore. You've learned that even when everything around you falls apart, you can still stand because you've seen yourself survive before. Pain refines your faith, teaching you that no storm lasts forever and that even the hardest nights eventually give birth to dawn. When the blessings finally arrive, they will taste different. You'll appreciate them more deeply because you'll know what it took to reach them. You'll hold them with humility, knowing how fragile everything in this world truly is. And when pain visits again, as it sometimes will, you'll no longer fear it the same way. You'll know that within every hardship lies a lesson, within every loss lies preparation, and within every pain, a hidden mercy waiting to unfold. So the next time your heart breaks, remember this pain is not a curse. It's a calling. A sacred message from the one who loves you most, saying, I'm not punishing you, I'm preparing you.